That night, when Jordan pressed his mouth to my ear and whispered, "Mom, Dad has a girlfriend, and she wants to take everything from you," I felt my soul split open. It wasn't just a sentence. It was like a massive pane of glass shattering inside my chest, scattering sharp pieces I knew I'd never be able to gather again. I was leaning against the kitchen counter, my hands still warm and damp because I had just finished washing the dishes. The house was too quiet, one of those silences that hurt your ears. The smell of the chili I'd cooked earlier lingered in the air, mixed with the lavender scent from the softener I'd used on the towels that afternoon. It was the smell of routine, a routine that was about to die in a way so cruel that even now the memory burns against my skin. Jordan was shaking. I felt the tremor through my blouse like an electric current. He held my arms so tight it almost hurt. When I looked at his face, his eyes were wide, wet, terrified. No child should ever look at their mother with that kind of fear. Fear of having said something they weren't supposed to, fear of hurting her with the truth, fear of carrying the weight of grown-up secrets. His tiny hand lifted to my face, as if checking whether I was still breathing. "Mom, don't be sad," he whispered, voice cracking. "I didn't want to tell you, but she said it'd be better for me." The house spun. My legs gave out. The sink behind me became the only thing holding me up. The air grew hot, thick, impossible to pull in. I breathed halfway, like someone trying not to drown. At the same time, a cold shiver crawled down my spine, a cold born from the sudden awareness that my life had just changed forever. I crouched down, bringing myself to his height. I held his little face in my hands, and his skin was warm, feverish, like his whole body was reacting to the weight of what he'd been carrying. "Who told you that, sweetheart?" My voice barely came out. It sounded like someone else speaking through me. He looked away. That broke my heart. "Dad, he said I shouldn't tell you. Said you'd ruin everything." Ruin everything? Me? The woman with cracked hands from scrubbing dishes? The woman who packed the backpacks? The woman who held fevers, asthma attacks, nights of crying? The woman who carried an entire marriage on her back while her husband carried another life in his hands? My stomach twisted. The room shrank. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to wake up from a nightmare that felt far too real. Jordan kept talking, but my mind drifted, trying to gather thoughts that shattered like porcelain on the floor. She said they have a pool, that I'd get my own room, that Dad's gonna live with her. The "she" hit like a slow stab. The sweet smell I'd noticed on his shirt days before. The absences, the made-up meetings, the coldness. Everything lined up so cruelly, it felt like the universe was laughing at my naivety. I pulled Jordan onto my lap and hugged him so tight I scared myself. But he hugged me back with the same intensity, like someone clinging to a raft in the middle of a stormy sea. His body trembled. So did mine. "Sweetheart, tell me, did you see this woman?" He nodded slowly. "She said I can call her aunt, that I'm gonna like the new house." A bitter taste rose in my throat, like blood I hadn't swallowed right. It wasn't just betrayal. It was emotional kidnapping. It was child manipulation. The kind of silent cruelty that destroys mothers from the inside without leaving a bruise on the outside. As I held Jordan, I felt my heart pound so hard it seemed ready to break through my ribs. A physical pain, real, like each beat was a cry for help. When I finally put him to sleep, his arms wrapped around my waist like he did when he was scared of the dark. I sat on the hallway floor with my back against the cold wall. The whole house was swallowed in a strange, heavy darkness, a suffocating silence. Jordan's breathing was the only soft sound in that abyss. And there, in that cold hallway, I noticed something that sent a chill up my neck. Maurice hadn't come home yet. And the back door was unlocked. Again. Maurice never left that door unlocked. That tiny detail, so small, so easy to ignore, lit up like a flame in the dark. Something was happening. Something big. Something he didn't want me to find out. And in that moment, body shaking, eyes burning, soul shattered, I felt the first spark of a thought that would change everything. Maybe my silence was far more powerful than he imagined. And the fear creeping up my chest wasn't just fear of betrayal. It was the fear of realizing that I had just been dragged into a war I never asked for, but one I now needed to win. The next morning, I woke up with that heavy body feeling, like I'd just run a marathon holding my heart in my hands. My head was pounding, and my eyes burned like I'd spent the whole night crying, even though I hadn't really slept at all. Sometimes pain doesn't cry. It just seeps inside, quietly, like water damage in a wall. Jordan was still asleep, curled up, clinging to his pillow. I ran my hand slowly through his hair, and the same question came back. How did he manage to carry so much on his own? That hurt more than the betrayal itself. No child should have to hold up any world. I went downstairs to the kitchen. The cold floor slapped the soles of my feet. Morning light came through the window, but it felt dim, washed out, as if the house itself had absorbed the shock of what I'd heard the night before. I made coffee on autopilot, listening to the familiar drip of the coffee maker. That sound that always used to calm me, but now echoed inside my empty chest. The smell of coffee rose warm, mixing with the smell of stale bread and the bitter memory of my son's words. "She's going to take everything from you." My stomach flipped. As I stirred a pan that didn't even need stirring, I heard the front door unlock. Maurice walked in. My heart pounded so hard I almost dropped the spoon. His face had that same calm expression, that responsible man look, as if everything in his world was perfectly in place. My world was destroyed, but his? Apparently flawless. He walked past me straight down the hall, his new cologne, too woody, too strong, too different, filling the air. The scent of a man trying to impress someone who isn't his wife. When he came back, he had that managerial smile on, the one he always used to dodge real conversations. "Sleep well?" he asked, as if that were even possible. I gripped my mug tighter. "Slept, like always," I answered, without looking at him. He opened the fridge, grabbed some water, and the door reflected his face back at him, tense, suspicious, almost irritated by my tone. The truth is, men like Maurice don't know what to do with silence. Silence doesn't hand them a script, doesn't hand them guilt, doesn't hand them emotion. Silence makes them see themselves. And he did not like what he saw. "Ariana, you're acting weird," he said, searching for cracks in my voice. "Just tired." It was true, but it was also useful. He drank the water slowly, like he was buying time to think. Then he ran a hand over his buzzed hair and said, "I'm getting home late today. There's a meeting." Of course there was. There was always a meeting. But that day, I didn't shrink. I didn't ask for details. I didn't ask what time. I didn't ask with whom. I just gave the slightest nod, expressionless, and that made him frown, just for a split second, but enough for me to notice. He was insecure. He was uncomfortable. He felt threatened by my silence. And that, somehow, gave me strength. The details of the day started screaming at me. When Jordan woke up, he came downstairs with that tired look, searching for me like I was his safe harbor. I made his breakfast and watched the way he looked at his father, with fear of upsetting him, with longing for the dad he used to be, with way too much confusion for a child his age. That pain should not exist. Maurice left his mug in the sink, no rinse, no glance back, and walked out with the car keys dangling from his fingers. Before closing the door, he tossed over his shoulder, "Ariana, try not to create problems, okay? We're fine." I almost laughed. He said we, but looked at me like he meant you. The blame always on the woman. A classic. As I cleared the table, something caught my eye. A folded paper in the pocket of his jacket, hanging over the chair. I didn't take it. I didn't open it. Not yet. I just stared. Folded paper in a jacket pocket. Document paper. Paper from someone who's planning something. That jacket stared at me all day. Routine trying to exist, but failing. The rest of the morning turned into a failed attempt at normalcy. I tried to sweep the living room, but the broom felt like it weighed 20 pounds. I tried to straighten up the bedroom, but the smell of his cologne on his clothes made my chest burn. I tried to fold the towels, but my hands were shaking too much. The radio played an old song, one of those that always reminded me of when Maurice and I were just two young people trying to survive together. I turned it off immediately. The memory hurt more than it helped. While I was washing dishes, my hands trembled so much I almost dropped a plate. The dish soap smelled like lemon, and the scent cut deep into my nose, not because it was strong, but because my whole body was on alert, as if every sense was trying to protect me from something. And standing there at the sink, with hot water running over my wrists, I noticed another micro-injustice. He hadn't left his wedding ring in the little ring dish. He had it in his pocket. Why does a married man put his ring in his pocket instead of on his finger? Because he took it off for a reason. And men who are cheating take off their rings when they're with the other woman. My heart skipped hard. The mother-in-law shows up, of course, at the worst moment. Early in the afternoon, Henrietta showed up at my door with that fake smile that could chill any room. I brought cake, she said, but the cake didn't smell like affection. It smelled like poison. With Jordan in his room, she walked into the kitchen like she owned the place. A long-standing habit I'd always swallowed out of politeness, but now it burned like hot iron. She sat down, smoothing out her skirt with that superior air. "Ariana, can I talk to you?" "You can," I replied, without offering her coffee. She took a deep breath, looked me in the eyes with that judging stare only a manipulative mother-in-law can pull off, and said, "An unhappy man, my dear, an unhappy man doesn't stay home." The sentence landed heavy, calculated. I felt each word scrape against me like sandpaper. She knew. Of course she knew. "You know what I think?" she went on, leaning in. "You're way too sensitive. Maybe you're imagining things." That line is the favorite weapon of anyone trying to destroy a woman's sense of reality. I gave a half smile, not amused, just tired. "Henrietta, I'm not imagining anything. I'm just observing." She froze, a micro-expression of fear, of surprise, of alarm. And in that split second, I realized she was much more afraid of my silence than of my pain. The discovery of the day. When she left, I went back to the living room and finally grabbed Maurice's jacket. In the pocket, I found the folded paper. It was a receipt from an expensive restaurant for 2 people in a part of town I never go to, dated last week. At the exact time he said, "I'll be late, I've got a meeting." And on the back of the receipt, there was a handwritten note, "See you tomorrow, my love." My whole body went cold. My fingers failed. For a second, it felt like my heart stopped. That was no longer suspicion. It was proof. I folded the paper carefully, like I was tucking a piece of my own heart inside it. I put it in a box, closed it, and in that moment, I understood that nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. Because the woman Maurice thought was blind was finally seeing everything. And once a wounded woman starts to truly see, that's when the story really begins. In the days that followed that morning, everything inside my house began to take on a different meaning. There were no innocent movements anymore. No door that just happened to close. No scent in the air that didn't make me look twice. It was as if every detail were calling me, pulling me by the eyes, saying, "Look again." Look closely. You weren't crazy. You were just exhausted. And when a tired woman starts noticing, no lie survives. The first thing that hit me was Maurice's phone. He'd never cared much about it before, always left it lying around like an old wallet. But now, it was glued to his hand. He carried it like a secret passport, an invisible vault. One day, while I was chopping onions in the kitchen, I heard the buzz of a message. The phone vibrated on the counter. He had forgotten it there for a few seconds. The screen lit up. The name didn't show, saved only as M. But the preview said, "Did you talk to him? Jordan needs to get used to it." My hands shook so badly I dropped half the onion on the floor. The strong smell shot up, stinging my eyes. And not just because of the onion, because my son's name was there, in another woman's mouth. A mother's instinct rose in me like a wave of fire, hot, violent, protective, the kind of instinct that wants to rip apart anything that threatens your child. When I reached for the phone to see the rest of the message, Maurice appeared in the hallway so fast, it was like he'd sensed the movement. "Don't touch my phone, Ariana." His voice came cold. A coldness I had never heard before. A coldness that froze me from the inside out. He grabbed the phone with a suspicious, almost panicked urgency. Then gave a forced smile, one of those smiles that hurt to look at. "It's work," he said. Work. Always work. I just nodded, tucking another puzzle piece into the poisonous mosaic forming inside me. Because now I knew. When he said work, he meant her. Always her. Jordan's behavior and the fear he tried to hide. That same night, I noticed Jordan was more restless than usual. He sat at the table drawing, but erased everything minutes later, like he was scared to make a mistake, scared to disappoint someone. But who? When I walked over, he lifted his head slowly. "Mom, when are we moving?" My heart tightened. "Why are you asking that, sweetheart?" He pressed his lips together, his little, "I'm trying to be brave" expression. "It's just, the lady said I'd like her house, that there's a pool, and I'd get my own room, and..." Every hair on my body stood up. My hands went cold. "You want to move there?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jordan shook his head immediately, hard. "No, I want to stay with you. Her house is pretty, but she talks weird. She said you'd be fine after, but I know you'd be sad." I knelt down, holding his face in my hands, feeling that kind of love that hurts but also saves. "Jordan, nothing will take you away from me. Even if the whole world tried, I will never let that happen." And as I said it, something inside me settled, solid, fierce. I was going to fight, to the end. And in that moment, looking into my son's eyes, I realized I wasn't just uncovering an affair. I was uncovering a planned emotional abduction. The black folder and the document that froze my blood. The next day, while I was putting away Maurice's things, as I'd done for years, because apparently that was supposed to be my job, I noticed his black folder was slightly open. Not much, just a sliver. Enough for a paper corner to stick out. A yellow sheet. I knew that color. Official forms, serious documents, real estate documents. With my fingertips, I pulled it out slowly. My heart slammed against my ribs, like it already knew what was coming. And then I read, "Property transfer. Owner, Maurice Langford. Preliminary adjustment proposal to prevent future litigation." To prevent future litigation. That phrase punched me straight in the stomach. I felt nauseous, had to steady myself on the bed to keep from falling. He was preparing, planning, strategizing my downfall before I even knew something was wrong. I stored the document, stored my silence, stored my fear. But that day, I also stored something else. The certainty that this wasn't just betrayal. This was strategy. The key that belonged to nowhere in our life. A week later, while putting clean towels away, a box fell from the top shelf. The lid popped open when it hit the floor. Inside were old photos, mementos from trips that now felt like lies, and the smell of old paper. But there was something that didn't belong. A silver key. New. Shiny. Not a scratch on it. With a black leather keychain and a small white sticker. 24B. My heart froze. I didn't even need to think twice. 24B. The same number from the condo statement? The same neighborhood as the fake meetings? The same place where Jordan said he'd seen a big pool? I held the key like I was holding evidence of a crime, because that's exactly what it was. A crime against me, against my dignity, against my story, against my family. The key burned in my hand, my whole body trembled, and one thought sliced through my chest. He already has a new home. He's just missing getting rid of the old one. The recording that wasn't supposed to exist. But nothing, absolutely nothing, hit me as hard as what came after. Jordan had a school project, recording short audios describing things he saw in pictures. I let him use my phone for it. At the end of the day, while I was deleting the files, a longer recording appeared. I clicked it without thinking, and a woman's voice came out of the speaker. The woman. She'll never notice anything, babe. Don't worry. And then Maurice's voice came next. In the divorce, she gets nothing. I dropped the phone. The screen hit the floor. I sank down. My legs couldn't hold me up. Nothing prepares a woman to hear her husband planning to destroy her life right in front of their own child. It was the final evidence, the last nail in the coffin. The truth, raw, sharp, undeniable. I sat there on the cold floor, hugging my knees, listening to the shaky breathing of my son in the next room, and felt something being born inside me. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't pure rage. It was something deeper, survival instinct. And when a betrayed woman's survival instinct switches on, no plan from a husband, lover, or mother-in-law can stop what comes next. The day of the first shock didn't arrive with warning signs. Tragedies never do. In fact, the day was almost too beautiful. Clear skies, a soft breeze, the smell of fresh bread drifting from the bakery down the street. But inside, I felt an uneasiness I couldn't name, as if my body knew something huge was about to happen and was trying to warn me its own way. With pressure on my chest, a weight on the back of my neck, that instinctive feeling that something is out of place. But what hurt the most when I woke up was seeing his side of the bed untouched, cold, the pillow perfectly smooth. He hadn't slept there the night before. And even knowing that, even knowing everything, my heart still made that foolish, automatic movement of waiting for the impossible. I went downstairs slowly, the smell of coffee filling the air, my favorite scent. Yet that morning, it tasted bitter before I even swallowed it. Jordan was drawing at the kitchen table, a simple drawing, a house with 2 doors, one blue, one red, and him standing in the middle, split in half. I took a deep breath and tried to smile. "That's nice, sweetheart, but why 2 doors?" He shrugged without looking up. "'Cause depends on where I'm gonna have to live." The sentence fell on me like a steel beam. Heavy, cold, merciless. And that was when I discovered the deepest pain in all of this. My child was already trying to adjust to a reality I didn't even know the full truth of yet. He was preparing himself for a fracture planted in his mind by someone with no right, who used him as an emotional pawn. My blood boiled. Literally, I felt my entire body heat up. Jordan's hand grabbed my wrist, almost as if he sensed my anger, like he was trying to protect me from my own pain. That reversal, a child holding his mother together, is something that marks you forever. And in that instant, I knew. I couldn't wait anymore. I needed to see. I needed the full truth. I needed to go all the way. Without saying a word, I went to my room, opened my closet, and took out the silver key, 24B. It felt heavy. Heavy like a threat. Heavy like a message. Heavy like a map. The time had come. Going to the condo, the air feels different when you know you're about to see something that will hurt you. I got Jordan ready and dropped him off at Danielle's place, told her I needed to take care of paperwork. She didn't ask anything, but her eyes followed me with that look only a real friend has. A look that says, "Go, I'll keep him safe, just come back in one piece." I grabbed a cab. With every block, my heartbeat got louder. With every red light, my stomach tightened. With every breath, my body whispered, "It's going to hurt, but you need to see it." When the cab turned into the condo's neighborhood, the irony hit me like a punch. Everything there was beautiful. Perfect gardens, clean streets, heavy security. A calm so sharp it didn't belong to me or my life. A neighborhood that reeked of money and secrets and lies. When I stepped onto the sidewalk, my whole body trembled. The key in my hand felt heavier than before. The security guard approached. "Good afternoon, ma'am. Which unit?" I took a breath. 24B. My voice didn't shake, but my knees nearly gave out. He studied me for a second. Maybe he recognized my last name? Maybe he'd seen Maurice walk in with another woman? Maybe he already knew something I didn't. But he eventually buzzed me through. Elevator C. Every step toward that elevator felt like sinking. The hallway smelled like lavender and new wood, like homes that had never suffered. Or maybe they had, just not like mine. Inside the elevator, the doors closed, and I saw myself reflected in the metal. The woman staring back did not look like me. Deep, dark circles, red eyes, a tight jaw. My chest rising and falling too fast. And yet, something strong in her gaze. A strength I didn't know existed in me. A strength born only in women who've been wounded and survived. The door of 24B, and the truth waiting on the other side. The elevator opened. My footsteps echoed. Each step felt like a strike from destiny. When I stopped in front of 24B, my heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. My hands were sweating. My throat burned. I put the key into the lock, turned it slowly. The door opened with a soft click. The smell hit first. A sweet perfume, the same one I'd smelled on his shirt, mixed with the scent of a new house, new furniture, the scent of someone who lives there, or two someones. I stepped inside. The hardwood floor creaked under my weight. The living room was cozy, brand new couch, carefully chosen pillows, 2 mugs on the coffee table, a lit candle. Everything screaming, "This is a home, but not yours." My breath stuttered. But it wasn't the living room that crushed me. It wasn't the kitchen. It wasn't the unframed photos. It was the hallway. Specifically, the slightly open door of the second bedroom. I walked toward it. And when the light hit the inside of that room, I lost my breath. The room was a child's room, new, set up, designed for a 10-year-old. A bed with superhero sheets, a blue rug, curtains with stars, a shelf of toys Jordan had been asking for, ones I couldn't afford that month. And on the bed, a toy car identical to the one he'd begged for recently. My whole body locked. My hands shook. My eyes burned with a pain no woman deserves to feel. And then I saw the detail that destroyed me. On the pillow was a tag, Jordan's room. My son, my baby. They had prepared everything, as if I were already disposable, as if I were nothing but a temporary obstacle. My throat closed. Air disappeared. I grabbed the wall so I wouldn't collapse. And that was the exact moment I heard it. The elevator coming up, the door opening, footsteps entering the hallway. Footsteps I knew intimately. Maurice. He was arriving. I was inside the apartment, inside his plan, with the key still warm in my hand. And now, I had only seconds to decide: face the monster head-on or disappear before he realized I already knew everything. When I heard Maurice's footsteps entering the apartment hallway, my heart started pounding so violently it felt like it might tear open my chest. This wasn't ordinary fear. It was primal, ancient. One of those fears that activates every muscle in your body to run, hide, survive. I pressed my hands against myself, trying to control my breathing as my eyes swept the room again. Jordan's room. The room she'd built. The room he'd approved. A room that should have been mine to create, never hers. I was about to explode. But I couldn't. Not yet. Their voices began echoing closer from the hallway. The mistress, Keisha, had a laugh that cut through the air, sharp, dripping with the confidence of someone who believes she's already won. And Maurice answered her in a low, intimate tone, the kind of tone he hadn't used with me in years. My whole body shook. The room felt smaller. The door that could expose me, suddenly felt loud just for existing. I had to get out, had to vanish. I took 2 careful steps back, pressing myself against the far wall of the room, forcing my mind to think. And for the first time, I noticed a small door leading to a side balcony. I never would have seen it if I hadn't stepped inside that room. I turned the knob slowly, slipped outside, and kept my body close to the exterior wall. On the other side of the door, I heard the sound of the apartment entrance, the soft click of the lock, Maurice's voice saying, "We're home," the familiar sound of keys tossed onto the table. I held my breath. For a brief second, I felt ridiculous, hiding on the balcony of an apartment where I should have been the only wife, the only mother, the only rightful woman. But instead of shame, something else rose inside me. Fire. Yes, fire. Fire of indignation. Fire of survival. Fire of a woman underestimated. And a sentence formed sharply inside me. My silence is going to be the thing that destroys you. I waited until they walked down the hall toward the bedroom area. Then I slipped onto the side walkway that connected to the building's corridor. I closed the balcony door without making a sound. My body was shaking so hard my legs almost gave out. But I made it to the elevator, pressed the button, and watched the doors close. When they finally shut, I breathed. A trembling, painful breath, as if releasing everything I'd been holding inside that apartment. And right there, with tears burning behind my eyes and anger pulsing through me like electricity, I understood. I wasn't weak. I wasn't naive. I wasn't stupid. I was alone. And women who are alone don't have the luxury of exploding. They have to plan. Returning to Danielle's house and the hug that held me up. When I reached Danielle's house, my vision was blurry. I didn't know if it was the wind or the pain or both. She opened the door before I even knocked. Maybe she'd been watching for me. Maybe she felt it. Danielle wrapped me in a hug so tight, so silent, that my body finally crumbled. I didn't cry out loud. I didn't scream. But my breath broke, shaking through me, coming in short gasps. And she didn't ask questions, didn't force me into words I didn't have yet. After a long minute, I managed to speak. "Danielle, there's a room for Jordan, in that place. They set up everything. Everything." She closed her eyes as if absorbing the blow herself. "Ariana, that's monstrous. They wrote his name on the pillow," I whispered, my voice cracking. Danielle held my face in both hands, steadying me. "You're going to win this. I didn't want a war, but they started one." Her words hit me like a truth I hadn't had the strength to acknowledge. The silent fear turning into strategy. When I got home with Jordan, he ran to his room to show me a new drawing. And while he talked with that innocence the world should never steal from a child, I realized something. I would never let that room in 24B become his reality. Never. Not even over my dead body. But for that, I needed to do the one thing a wounded woman hates at first. Breathe, measure, collect, document, stay quiet, silence. The silence that used to crush me was now my shield. I started watching everything with a clinical precision. His clothes, the cologne that wasn't mine anymore, his schedule, meetings that lined up too perfectly, his phone, always face down, his small lies, every micro injustice I used to ignore. And I began my silent process. 1. The evidence box. I stored the restaurant receipt, the 24B key, screenshots of texts, the condo statement, the transcription of Jordan's recording. Each item weighed more than gold. It was my salvation. 2. The emotional log. I wrote down dates, times, behaviors, small things, but things a judge loves, things an attorney turn into ammunition. 3. The calculated distance. I stopped asking where he was going, stopped asking for explanations, stopped reacting. And that made him uneasy. Men who cheat want two things: a quiet wife and a confused wife. When she becomes too quiet, they panic. The night fear became strength. Maurice got home late, very late. I was sitting in the living room, a cup of tea growing cold in my hand. He walked in without looking at me, took off his shoes, dropped his bag, held his phone like a bomb. "Ariana, you've been really quiet lately." I took a slow breath. Tired, he smirked. That half smirk that borders on mockery. "You should take care of your mind. Being overly sensitive causes problems." That sentence was gasoline, the match, the spark. I swallowed hard, met his eyes, and said the line he never expected. "You're right. Being too sensitive gets in the way. Good thing I'm seeing everything much more clearly now." He froze, literally froze. "What does that mean?" I gave a small smile. "Nothing, for now." And I walked upstairs without looking back. That night, for the first time, I realized I wasn't just reacting to his game. I was playing too. I was still a wounded woman. But a wounded woman who is alert is the most dangerous thing there is. She learns fast. She sees everything. And when she finally decides to act, she never misses her target. That night, watching Jordan sleep, I made a silent promise. "You wanted to take everything from me? Then now you'll see what happens when I decide I'm done losing." Fear had turned into strength, and strength had become a plan. And the plan was only beginning. The confrontation didn't happen suddenly. It built itself slowly, the way a storm forms. First a heavy silence, then the charged air, then the smell of rain, until the sky finally breaks open. And I was the storm he created, ignored, and underestimated. We were entering the phase where Maurice started sensing the shift, without me saying a word. He'd come home and look around like he was searching for something. Probably the old version of me, the one who accepted excuses, softened conflicts, and swallowed lies to keep the peace. But that woman died the day I heard the recording of his mistress talking about my son. So when he walked in, I waited. When he breathed too deeply, I observed. When he lied, I stored it, not on paper, but inside me. And that's how I built my moment. No screaming, no crying, no threats, just strategy. And sometimes, when a woman finally wakes up, the universe seems to cooperate. The day of the confrontation begins with silence. It was a Saturday afternoon. Jordan was at Danielle's house playing with her dog. I walked around my home like a shadow, not to avoid Maurice, but to understand the space where the masks would finally fall. My eyes saw everything with terrifying clarity. Maurice came home after lunch, wearing that fake calm I could now decipher. He always walked in too put together, too fresh, too satisfied for someone who had supposedly spent the morning in meetings. He looked at me quickly, testing my expression. I gave him nothing, not a muscle. That irritated him. "Ariana, we need to talk." I turned to him calmly, like he was asking about the weather. "We do." He seemed thrown off by my steadiness. "You've been distant, cold. I know we're going through a rough patch, but I want us to try." I cut him off with a gentle, almost delicate gesture. "Maurice, can you do me a favor?" He blinked, confused. "Sure, what?" "Come with me." He followed, uneasy. Each step he took echoed on the floor like an omen. I could feel his discomfort growing. Tight shoulders, clenched jaw, narrowed eyes. I led him to the dining table. On top of it lay a thick brown envelope. He stopped. I stopped. And for the first time in months, I saw real fear in his eyes. Fear. Raw. Unfiltered. Instinctive. And that fear returned to me a part of myself he had stolen. The first truth hits the air like static. "What's this?" he asked, his voice lower than usual. I sat down, took a breath, then slid the envelope toward him. "Why don't you open it?" He hesitated. And when someone hesitates to open their own truth, it's because they know what's inside. But he opened it. When he saw the contents, he went pale. Printed screenshots of the messages, the expensive restaurant receipt, the condo transaction statement, a photo of the 24B key, and the transcription of Jordan's recording. He looked up at me with a face collapsing under its own guilt, scrambling for words. "Ariana, this is... I ended it for him. "It's the truth." He swallowed hard. His throat bobbed like he was trying to swallow stones. "Ariana, I can explain." "Maurice, you still don't understand." I spoke with a calm sharp enough to cut. "I'm not here for explanations. I'm here for truths. And I want you to listen to mine." He took a shaky breath, already stumbling emotionally. "You're trying to destroy me." I let out a soft laugh. Not of amusement, of disbelief. "No, Maurice, I'm trying to stop you from destroying me. There's a difference." He rubbed his hands over his face, panicked, desperate for an exit. But the envelope gave him none. Still, he tried the classic manipulator move. "If you take this to court, everyone loses. I was just trying to organize things before..." I pressed my palm on the envelope, slowly, steady, firm. And the sound echoed louder than I expected. "Before getting rid of me? Before taking my son from me? Before leaving me with nothing? Before building your new life with your girlfriend while I started over from scratch?" He opened his mouth and closed it. Nothing came out, because nothing could save him. Twist 1. He realizes he's already lost. I took out another envelope from my bag. Smaller, more dangerous. "My meeting with the attorney. It's been weeks, Maurice." He blanched. This is serious, Ariana. You're not thinking about Jordan." "I think about Jordan every second," I said. "Since the day you dragged him into your filth. You put him in the middle. You let another woman groom him emotionally. You planned a house with a room for him behind my back. Don't talk to me about thinking of him. You forfeited that right." He had no place to stand, no answer to give. Still, he tried. "I never said I'd take Jordan from you." I stood up, walked to my bedroom, got another document, and placed it in front of him. It was the official report filed at the school, stating that an unauthorized woman tried to approach my son, mentioning she'd pick him up soon, with witnesses, signatures, dates. His eyes widened. Keisha had betrayed him too, without meaning to. What are you planning to do?" he whispered. I walked toward him, slowly, looked straight into his eyes, and spoke the sentence that marked the beginning of my freedom. "Maurice, I'm planning to survive, and you're going to deal with the consequences of what you did." We sat in silence for a few seconds. Then I said, "You lost the privilege of controlling this story. The narrative is mine now." He started crying, not with remorse, but with fear. Fear of a man who realizes the weapon he forged is now pointed at him. Catharsis, the rise of the underestimated woman. I inhaled deeply. I felt my voice return, full, steady, truly mine for the first time in years. "Maurice, you didn't destroy a weak woman. You freed a strong one, and that is going to cost you." He lowered his head, and I finished. From now on, the ending of this story, I'm the one who writes it. I stood up, walked away, left him there, collapsing, groundless, out of control. And with each step I took, I felt the Ariana he tried to break was finally born. After that day at the dining table, with all the cards face up, nothing went back to normal in the house. And strangely, that was a relief. The normal I had before was a stage play where I was the only one without a copy of the script. Now, at least, every silence had a name. Every glance had a story. Every step had a consequence. In the days that followed, Maurice tried everything. First came the promises. He started getting home earlier, washed his own dishes, asked if I needed anything, offered to pick up Jordan from school. His voice had that softness I hadn't heard in years, the kind of softness that once would have felt like crumbs of comfort. But now I saw it clearly. One afternoon, he showed up at the bedroom door, a little disheveled, with that lost boy look many men adopt when they're cornered by the consequences of their own choices. "Ariana, I know I messed up, but we can start over. I'll end it, all of it. We can pretend none of this happened for Jordan." I looked at him for a few seconds, not with hate, not with love, with clarity. "Maurice, the problem isn't just what you did to our marriage. It's what you did to our son. You made him carry a secret that no decent adult would put on a child. You allowed him to be emotionally cornered by a woman who was not me. And you planned a new home with him in the middle of it. You don't erase that with sorry and a reconciliation dinner." He lowered his head, and I went on. "You didn't break only a wife's trust. You broke a child's. And that kind of damage, life and God will deal with that, not me. I'm just protecting myself now." Right then and there, it became clear. There was no going back. Not for me, not for him, not for us. The mother-in-law facing her son's fall. Henrietta, of course, didn't take long to appear. She walked into the house with the attitude of someone who still believed she held power. "I heard you're taking this to court, Ariana," she said, arms crossed like a judge. "You're really going to expose your own husband?" A strange calm washed over me. Years ago, I would have stumbled, apologized, tried to ease the tension. Not now. "Henrietta, he exposed himself. I'm just shining a light on what you preferred to keep in the dark." She rolled her eyes. "Men make mistakes, dear. A wise woman holds the home together." I gave a small smile. The smile of someone who finally understood the game. "A wise woman doesn't let herself be destroyed inside her own home," I replied. "If you had taught your son to be a husband and a father, instead of just teaching him to be a man, maybe we wouldn't be here." She gasped slightly. She didn't expect that from me. "And just so we're clear," I added, gently, "I'm not taking the father away from Jordan. Maurice will have to regain that relationship. I'm only removing the husband from my path. His role as a father is up to him, not me." Henrietta left, still wearing her pride, but also the realization that the submissive Ariana she'd known for years was gone. The mistress disappears and pays her own price. Keisha vanished for a while. No calls, no messages, no woman-to-woman conversation. And honestly, thank God. I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to deal with someone who settled for being second place, much less someone who meddled with my son's emotional safety. But life always sends signs. Through whispers and sideways comments, I learned she'd started seeing Maurice for who he truly was. Not the strong, confident, decisive man she'd imagined, but someone who cried, played the victim, twisted stories for his own convenience. Slowly, her fantasy cracked. That was the first kind of justice I watched unfold. Truth weighing on everyone, not just on me. The formal decision, divorce. When I sat down with the attorney, Reginald, again, I was no longer the trembling woman I'd been during the first consultation. I sat straighter, breathed steadier, spoke clearer. I want to move forward with the process. No staged agreement, no second chance, no theatrics. I want what's fair. He reviewed the documents, explained each step. Division of assets, custody, support, the house. Cold, concrete things. Technical, well, everything inside me was burning and human. But hearing this mattered. Ariana, you're not asking for anything unreasonable. You're asking for the minimum. Legal respect for what you endured and protection for your son. The rest is survival. When I left his office, the wind hit my face hard. For the first time, the wind didn't give me chills. It felt like movement, like forward, like there's no going back, and that's okay. Moving homes and moving into a new version of myself. The hardest part was leaving the home where I'd watched Jordan take his first steps, where I'd heard his first laughs, where I'd cooked dinners, organized birthday parties, cried quietly in the bathroom. The place wasn't guilty, the walls weren't guilty. On moving day, I walked through each room, running my hands over the surfaces like I was saying goodbye to different versions of myself hidden in the corners. In the kitchen, I remembered washing dishes while Maurice whispered to another woman on the phone. In the living room, I remembered the couch where he pretended to be tired, but smelled like cologne that wasn't mine. In our bedroom, I remembered nights holding the pillow, begging for clarity. Am I crazy or is something wrong? And when I closed the door one last time, I realized I wasn't taking much with me, but I was taking everything that mattered. My son, my dignity, my story rewritten. The new apartment was smaller. The walls had marks. The windows didn't close perfectly. Street noise seeped in. The upstairs neighbor dragged furniture. The kitchen sink was old, but it was mine. When Jordan walked in for the first time, carrying a box of toys, he looked around, breathed deep, and said, "Mom, this place feels like our home." I almost cried. Didn't, so I wouldn't scare him. But inside, I came undone. We set up his room together. He chose where everything would go, like he was building a little world where he felt safe again. "This is my side of the world, and that's your side," he said, laughing. "We're still together, right?" I hugged him tight. We're always together. That sentence wasn't just a promise to him. It was a commitment to myself. Emotional justice, not fantasy. The legal process wasn't easy. None ever is. I had to hear unpleasant things, endure sideways glances, answer harsh questions. Maurice tried to downplay everything, twisting the narrative, saying the marriage was already bad, saying I was exaggerating, saying our son was confused. But every time he lied, a document spoke for me. When the decision came, primary custody with me, fair visitation, a reasonable division of assets, and acknowledgement of his inappropriate behavior, I didn't feel like I had won. I felt something else. I had survived with dignity. I didn't come out rich. I didn't come out unscathed. But I came out whole enough to rebuild. And most importantly, Jordan stayed with me, by my side, without being used as a bargaining chip. Watching him sleep peacefully in the new home, without the fear of being taken away from me, was the greatest justice I could ever receive. Does it still hurt? Some days, the memories tighten around my chest, like everything happened yesterday. But now, the pain doesn't control me. It only reminds me where I'm never going back. And sometimes, when I'm standing in my little new kitchen, washing dishes under warm water and listening to the soft sounds of our new life, I close my eyes and think, they tried to take everything from me. But what remained was what had always truly been mine. Today, as I write this final piece of my story, I'm in my new kitchen. Small, simple, with a table I bought secondhand and sanded myself. The walls have marks, the street is noisy, the place isn't perfect or glossy like the homes in magazines, but it has something I never had in all the years I lived with Maurice: peace. It's strange how silence changes once you free yourself. Before, the silence in my old house was heavy, suffocating, thick. A silence that made me feel invisible, forgotten, secondary. Now, silence is different. It's light. It fills the space without hurting me. It embraces instead of swallowing. Jordan is in his room, organizing his toy cars. He does that whenever he feels calm. Even his breathing, from a distance, gives me a feeling I will never take for granted again. Safety. My son is safe. Emotionally, physically, psychologically. He's no longer caught in the crossfire of irresponsible adults. He no longer carries secrets that don't belong to children. I pause my writing for a second and watch the afternoon light coming through the window. It's an ordinary light, nothing dramatic. But to me, it feels like a sign, a reminder, a quiet invitation to notice where I've arrived after thinking I had no ground left to stand on. These past months changed me in ways I'm still learning to understand. And maybe you, listening to my story, know exactly what I mean. Maybe you know the kind of exhaustion that isn't physical. It's soul exhaustion. The exhaustion of carrying a home, a family, routine, stability, while being treated like you were never enough. And that's why I want to tell you this with all the sincerity in my heart. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be heard. You deserve respect. And you deserve a life where you don't have to constantly prove your worth. I used to be the kind of woman who believed that if I tried harder, things would get better. If I spoke softer, held my tears, smiled more, gave more, stretched myself thinner, maybe the other person would change. Maybe I would be chosen. Maybe I'd finally be loved. But the truth, the one that only shows up after life tears you open, is simple. Anyone who wants to lose you will lose you, even if you fight to stay. And anyone who wants to love you will love you without you needing to beg. Today, when I look back, I don't see a defeated version of myself. I see the woman who rose from her own wounds. I see the mother who fought for her child even while shaking. I see the woman who stood up when everyone expected her to stay broken. And I want you to know something. I'm no different from you. I'm not stronger, braver, or smarter. I just hit my limit. And when a woman reaches her limit, she doesn't fall. She rises. She rises however she can, with swollen eyes, with trembling hands, with a quiet voice, with a heart in pieces. But she rises. And maybe that's what you needed to hear today. Even wounded, you can rise. Even exhausted, you can restart. Even betrayed, you are still whole. I used to think the betrayal had stolen who I was, but it only stripped away who I pretended to be in order to survive. The woman I am now, the one sitting in this imperfect kitchen, writing her own story, that woman is real. And she knows silence can be strength. Distance can be protection. Calm can be an answer. Dignity can be revenge. And the greatest justice I ever received wasn't custody or assets or the divorce decree. The greatest justice was looking in the mirror and finally seeing myself again. Today, when I go to bed, I place a hand on my chest and feel my heartbeat, not squeezed, Not anxious, not suffocated. A heartbeat that says, "You survived. Now live." And I am living. Not like before, trying to fit, trying to please, trying to twist myself into something acceptable. I'm living on my own terms, in my own rhythm, with my own truth. The truth my son whispered into my life. The truth pain forced me to see. The truth that finally set me free. And if this story touched you, even just a little, I want to ask you one thing. Don't abandon yourself. Not ever again. If you stayed with me until the end, thank you. Thank you for your company, your presence, your courage to feel with me. And if this story embraced you somehow, leave your like, your comment. Your voice matters. Not just to me, but to a world that has tried too many times to silence you. Because you, just like me, deserve a life where your story isn't erased, but rewritten by your own hands.